went to school here, same as my parents, but school was not a challenge. I was able to do well at it, but I never felt interested or challenged.
It was interesting in terms of, as a kindergartner, having to explain to somebody why I wore my hair long or why my name was as unique as it is on Pauduta Flying Earth.
You know, there's this like kind of mainstream mantra that exists in like the United States that I think doesn't always transfer to indigenous communities who are more grounded in like the ideas of identity, culture, and they see success similarly, but not, I guess, like in one like kind of what's the word I'm looking, siloed way. So it's not just about like, you know, you go to school to be able to go to college to get a good job, so you can be, you know, it's not like this like singular kind of view. It's really like, how are we developing students holistically? So when I think about an indigenous education movement, I think that our communities in New Mexico, in the United States and North America have an amazing opportunity to really think about what can be dramatically different, and then how do we tap into autonomies of like charter schools or grant schools or whatever those mechanisms are to launch those kind of initiatives and missions, and the mission and vision of something that's different. The Native American Community Academy was established in 2005. We serve 390 students, grades 6 through 12, and 60 different tribes or more are represented in the school, 14 different ethnicities.
I feel like culture and language is huge when it comes to academic success. I think it's important for anybody to connect back to their legacy and who they come from, and the values intrinsic in their previous generations.
The students have taught me a lot about myself. I wanted to relate to them as I wanted teachers to relate to me when I was that age. So everything I put into my curriculum, into my classroom, I didn't receive when I was in school. It was my turn to make a difference in the students' lives. My motivation is to give these students something that I didn't have growing up.
It really is. I don't see it as a workplace, your typical workplace, somewhere you go 9 to 5. It really is a family, and in Lakota we have a word for that. It's called Tioshpaye. And Tioshpaye is different than Tiwahe, which is your immediate family. Tioshpaye translates into a community of people who have similar or like interests, whether it be spiritually or communal, and Naka is definitely a Tioshpaye.
So when I think about self-determination, and like I think the most recent conversation I've had with somebody at our school is around this idea that anything is possible, and I totally believe that. Like true transformation comes from the idea that anything is possible, and I think if our students embody that everything is going to like, I think that's the opportunity that we have in education. So the Naka Inspired Schools Network, which I'm really excited to talk about, is in kind of its first full-blown cohort of fellows. The idea for the network really came out of kind of the need and response to people who were excited about Naka, who would visit our school and ask like the question, how do I do this in my school? Or how do we start a school like Naka in my community? And so the Naka Inspired Schools Network has a goal of launching 10 schools by 2017 in New Mexico.
The families we're working with, I think right now we're feeling like this is an open opportunity for them to define what education should look like for their own child. And that's a rare thing, to have that freedom to think about education without all the barriers that we put around it, and to dream.
So I started doing home visits. I started reaching out to parents who hadn't come and started visiting them in their home and having conversations with them about their children, which were wildly successful, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. And I think that pretty quickly taught me that there were families who were incredibly invested in their children's education, but that in a lot of ways were distrustful of the system and sort of passively resisting the system that their kids were attending.
For so long, we've been, as Native peoples and as a community, we've been told what we need to learn, what we should learn, and very rarely do we have a choice in deciding what that is. I realized that there were a lot of things that I thought my community deserved to learn, whether it was about planting or learning the history of this community, learning their language, or being able to work together. I felt like those components were missing from school.
We're here around my home, the Pueblo of Laguna. We come out for the feast days and for the dances, and I remember seeing that as a child and kind of really reconnecting. In my work here, I worked with young people for, a dozen years almost, a decade. And what I saw with those young people was when you put something exciting and dynamic in front of them, they're going to grab it, they're going to take care of it, they're going to make it theirs, and they're going to show you what the potential is. They're going to flip it back and say, challenge me, and let's do more.
Oh yes, kids are so much fun. I taught junior high. I taught 7th and 8th grade. I used to work with younger kids as well, like Head Start age, and that's just always so much fun, just seeing how kids learn and showing them things for the first time and seeing, helping them to understand these huge concepts that are going to affect them for their entire lives.
I think in some ways, this might sound kind of weird. I think in a lot of ways, like what is unfolding is like unfolding and like it's already happened. It's just a matter of us catching up with this idea of like whatever mission and vision people have kind of set forth about, I think Native students and Indigenous communities being able to really think about what it is that are their strengths and how do they start to like rebuild and connect and move things forward in a very like strengths-based way.